Today on Passion for Food, we make the Cloud 9 of desserts, the easiest strawberry Pavlova recipe ever. The beauty with these is they look like they would be super complicated, but actually they're easy enough that I think even a orangutan could probably swing this. Anyway, let's jump in here and get cracking with our eggs. Now, one thing you should definitely know about meringue is that there's no yolking around. As we're separating these, it's fine if some of the whites stay with the yolks, but it is not fine if some of the yolks wind up in the whites. So definitely be careful about that. For our easy strawberry pavlova today, we're going to need a total of 4 egg whites. Typically, pavlova recipes range between 3 and 6 eggs, so I decided to take the Goldilocks approach. If you haven't separated very many eggs, don't worry, it's very easy. I still like the 2-shell method. I've tried that method where you let the whites run through your fingers, but I seem to get significantly more broken yolks that way, and my hands aren't that rough, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. But be on the lookout for little shards of shell that might be trying to sneak past you. That's not the kind of crunchy we want in our final meringue. As for these yolks, check out the link in the top right for some easy hollandaise sauce recipes, which is the best way to accidentally eat a stick of butter. Anyway, now that we have those egg whites, let's go ahead and beat it. Now, speaking of, with the amount of beating involved here, I really like a stand mixer, although a hand beater would also work just fine. If you want to use a whisk, you're gonna get quite a workout. And before we get started, we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of cream of tartar. If you don't have that, 2 teaspoons of white wine vinegar would also work. In both cases, what we're doing is adding an acid, which is going to help us denature the proteins in those egg whites, taking them from little coils to strands, which will help create a much more stable foam in our final meringue. The key here is to really beat it like you mean it. I turn this on high, and I pretty much just use the high setting the entire time. After about 30 seconds, I'm going to stop and give it a quick check, and we've come to about the soft peak phase here, so we can go ahead and start adding our sugar. We need a total of 1 cup of sugar, and we're going to add it by the spoonful as we continue to whip this on high. Now, I've seen a lot of debate online about the different kinds of sugar you can use. I'm just using regular granulated sugar. I know some people report to liking finer grained sugars or even confectioner sugar, but in my experience, often those meringues don't whip up quite as much. Maybe that's just because you don't have to whip them as much, because, with granulated sugar, you really have to whip and whip and whip to get it all dissolved. But perhaps that's a blessing in disguise. After about 5 minutes, I had the sugar incorporated, and you can see the meringue is super stiff and it's taken on a very glossy appearance. We do want to give this bowl a good scrape down with a spatula. There's still going to be a lot of little granules of sugar clinging to the sides and bottom there. At which point we just want to continue beating these eggs on high until all of our sugar has been dissolved. After about another 5 minutes, it should be ready, so let's have a quick look. And you can see as far as stiff peaks go, these are super stiff peaks. You could swing these around, these won't go anywhere. This is exactly what we're looking for. And what we want to do is just rub a little between our fingertips like this. If it feels sandy, if you can still feel those sugar granules, you need to whip a little more. Once our meringue is smooth, though, there's one more secret to the perfect pavlova, and that's 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. This is actually going to absorb a little bit of moisture and help give that pavlova the marshmallowy inside that it's so famous for. And we'll just give that a quick mix on high to get that thoroughly incorporated, and that's it. Our pavlova meringue is ready to form. So we'll go ahead and transfer this to a parchment paper lined baking sheet. I know a lot of people measure out a little circle, but that seems unnecessary. I'm pretty sure we can lump out some egg whites onto some parchment paper without needing to pre-measure anything. because all we really want to do is pat this out into roughly a disc shape. And you might want to put a slight depression in the middle because this is going to puff up ever so slightly in the oven, and we are going to be topping this with some cream and fruit. We're aiming for approximately 8 inches across, and you can make little swirls on the surface of the egg whites if you like. Once we're happy, we'll place that in the center of a 300-degree oven. But as soon as we put it in, we want to drop the oven down to 250 degrees, and we're going to cook that for 1 hour. It's going to puff up a little, but other than that, very little is going to change. And here's the real trick to this. After an hour, just turn the oven off and leave this in here for 4 hours or so until it comes down to room temperature. Do not open that oven door. That way it cools nice and slow and our meringue stays super pretty. You can actually make this the night before and just leave it in the oven until you're ready to use it. Now, interestingly, there's disagreement between New Zealanders and Australians as to who actually invented Pavlova. Most seem to agree that it was to honor the dancer Anna Pavlova during some of her tours in Australia and New Zealand in the 1920s. But hey, you guys basically have the same flag, so I don't know, maybe you can just share credit on this one a little. Anyway, now that all the kangaroos and hobbits are mad at me, let's go ahead and top this Pavlova. And because of that little indentation we made earlier, we have a nice flat surface, so we want to go ahead and top this with some nice whipped cream. The total amount is up to you. I use just under a full cup of heavy whipping cream here. Next up, we've got our fruit. I'll be using strawberries here today. We just want to remove this stem and get these nicely sliced up. And I'm just going to lay these out in kind of a spiral pattern starting on the outside. You can top this just about any way you want, but fresh fruit and cream is traditional. Although I'll be honest, I kind of just want to grab that giant meringue and a spoon and go to town. But that's not how we're doing things today. I decided I hadn't added enough fruit in my first layer, so I did another pass here and just added more strawberries down around the outside. But once we're berry satisfied with our fruit situation, we can go ahead and cut a slice of this beautiful strawberry pavlova. Man, I tell you, whenever I see this stuff, I just start drooling a little. It must be a Pavlovian response. One of the things that's so fun about this dessert are the wildly contrasting textures. You have this crispy meringue on the outside, along with that pillowy soft marshmallow in the middle. Pair those with that cool cream and those crisp berries, man, it's just a crispy, fluffy little cloud you can eat. If you've never tried one of these, I highly recommend giving it a try. I know those meringues might look a little intimidating, but they're actually surprisingly easy to make if you just have a little patience. I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Passion for Food. If you have, check out one of our other great recipes playing on the screen now. And give me a thumbs up below and consider subscribing and hitting that little bell so you don't miss our future episodes. This has been Graham with Passion for Food.